Welcome to the Sons of History show, everyone. We're going to be talking about how exactly are you supposed to judge a president. It is the President's Day discussion, and do you have to sit like that, like a child?
You know, you have been criticizing me this entire show.
I apologize.
This is...
This is
George Washington's birthday. We should be thinking about George Washington. Why are we? He don't touch me.
All right, so hey, that's enough. Click the subscribe button. We're about to get started with the show.
Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe to us on
God.
YouTube. What? What did I do now?
Jeez. All right, so we're going to be talking about the president. So today, when this episode has come out, is President's Day. So happy President's Day to all of the presidents, current, and
technically, it's still George Washington's birthday. It's not really President's Day.
What do you mean?
It's George Washington's birthday. It never really... it was insinuated that it should be, celebrate
right, but
President's
technically
Day.
the president, George Washington's birthday is next Monday, the 22nd.
Yeah, according to the Gregorian calendar.
Right, but even according to the Julian calendar, it wouldn't be today.
Correct. It's supposed to be the third Monday of February, which in this case will be the 15th.
Right, but it wouldn't always be his birthday.
Right, but that's when we celebrate.
But that's why we've
You know why they did all that?
The Julian and Gregorian?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, he was born in 1732, but England, Britain, it was Britain at the time. Britain had not adopted the Gregorian calendar because the Brits were not going to follow those papists, those Catholics, with their Gregorian. Because, the Gregorian calendar was Pope Gregory the 13th, Pope. England did not really care for the Catholicism or the Catholic Church of Rome or anything of the sort. But they did finally adopt the Gregorian calendar in 1752.
Right.
And so George Washington lost 11 days of his life, never to get them back.
No. But he lived them strongly.
Yeah.
Brutally. All right, so we're going to be talking about the president. How should we judge presidents? Because
it depends
they're judged all the time. People are putting out lists. You go onto YouTube, here's my top 10. And a lot of times they're pretty much the similar top 10. Everybody has like 4 or at least 5 of the typical top 10.
Right.
Washington and Lincoln's always there. But that's what we're going to address. How should we be judging the presidents? And we're going to be talking about that. But before we do, book and movie recommendation, I'll let you take the lead on this.
All right, I'm going to use my blue filter glasses. The movie that I'm going to recommend, although it's not a movie, it's
not
a TV show. But, I started watching The Walking Dead again, the earlier episodes, earlier seasons, season 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5. And it's...
I didn't like it when they started going off into the wilderness or the woods, splitting up and everything. I did not.
Oh, that was in season 4, I believe.
Yeah, season 4.
I like that one in a way. Yeah, it wasn't as good as season 3 was the absolute best. But it's a good show. It's really this is before the social justice warriors took over, and
have they turned it into that?
That's what they've done.
Everywhere. Yeah.
They started killing off all the good men, and the rest of the men just became wimps.
Yeah.
And it was like the women were the tough ones, and the men were the weak ones.
Yeah.
It just unrealistic.
Right.
If you want to bring some tough women, but don't make the men.
Exactly. That's pretty much the only unrealistic part of that show.
Yeah. So after so many years, if you're a weak man, chances are you're dead.
Right.
You're not gonna.
You're not gonna
survival of the fittest. But you know what? I say watch the first 5 seasons. I think they're pretty good.
No, if you've never watched the first 3, any of it,
yeah,
the first 3 seasons are phenomenal.
Yeah, they just get better and better. Season 3
until they get worse and worse.
Yeah, season 4 I liked it. It wasn't.
I didn't. Well, go on. Yeah. Because I didn't like the. We have our differences.
Yeah, we do.
A lot of them.
Yeah, we'll see. Now remember those 2 words. We'll see. Remember that. It's going to be part of the show.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
All right. You know, I should have made that one movie part of. I'll do it another time. Okay. Now for a book, it's called The Napoleonic Wars: A Global History. I can't pronounce his name. Can you pronounce that? Alexander Mika Baredzi?
I don't know. I'm not even going to help you with this.
I don't know who he is. Mike. Okay. I bought the book because I want to read up a little bit more about the Napoleonic Wars. A lot of great reviews, especially a lot of military guys saying that, you know, anyone who wants to read military history needs to read this book because it talks about how truly global the
Go ahead.
Napoleonic Wars were. So so Alexander Mika Baredzi. So yeah, that's if you can see it, that's it right there. So anyway, all right. So that's my
Napoleonic Wars.
The Napoleonic Wars: A Global History.
All right. So since we're talking about presidents this week, and since you've already talked about, Walking Dead and Napoleon have nothing to do with the president. Anyways,
actually, the Napoleonic Wars would have an effect on one of our presidents.
Of course, yes, indeed, and we will address that.
Yes.
All right, so my movie recommendation actually has to do with the president. It's called Lincoln, the Steven Spielberg movie. Did you ever see that?
Is that the one with the vampire?
Yeah, Vampire Slayer, number 1.
No, there's a Lincoln movie.
Yeah, I know.
Why are you looking at me like that for?
Because you act like I wouldn't know that.
Well, I'm just saying.
Anyways,
maybe our audience doesn't know.
Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis and a very deserving Academy Award win. Although, unfortunately, nowadays, you never know why people are getting Academy Awards. But this one, extremely well-deserved. Interestingly enough, Lincoln is played by a Brit, Daniel Day-Lewis, and also Ulysses S. Grant is played by a Brit, Jared Harris.
Yeah, in The Walking Dead, Rick Grimes is a Brit.
He's British.
Morgan was British.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like Southern.
Yeah, Morgan was British. Maggie was British.
Yeah.
A lot of,
I don't know what's going on, but there's a real infiltration.
Yeah.
The Tories are coming back, storming back.
Damn English coming here with their English language.
You want your language.
Speaking American, is it?
Yeah, speak American.
Yeah, this is America.
But it's a really good movie if you've never seen it. Highly encourage you to watch it. Also, book, if you can find this, it is Lincoln's Speeches and Writings. Really good stuff. And I think that's probably your best method to really find out a lot about an individual is to read their writings, not just read the commentary on their writings, taking certain clips.
So you don't recommend reading what a present-day reporter has to say on presidents from 100 years ago, 150 years ago?
Well, I'm not saying don't, because I read some of that stuff, but it's like our friend Joe always says, go to the source, don't drink downstream.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Always go to the source if you can.
Yeah. Coffee will taste better. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to be talking about how do we judge our presidents. And Alan, what do you think is better to do? Judge a president based on the impact and the effects that the effect that he has or she in the future. I love it when they do that. Like he or she, and I'm like, we haven't had a she yet. So when that happens, we'll play it in. So how should we judge a president based on the effects that he leaves behind, like in his 4 years or 8 years or 16 almost, 4 years or 8 years or 10, 20, 30 years after the after effects, the aftermath of a presidency? How should they be judged?
Yeah, have you seen the movie Charlie Wilson's War? Mm-mm. You never saw Charlie?
I've never seen it.
Oh man, you need to see it.
Why didn't you put that in as a...
thought about doing that. Tom Hanks and that guy.
The guy who died.
Yeah, I forgot his name. Good actor. Great actor,
Great
really.
actor.
But at the end of the movie...
Crocodile Tears.
I don't know. He was the guy... I don't know.
Along Came Polly?
That one. Yeah, the guy who sharted.
Yes, he was on the Crocodile... They said,
Yes.
weren't you the kid on Crocodile Tears?
I don't remember that part.
He's like, you God. Right, I know. I was.
Well, he was in Mission Impossible 3. Good movie. Mission Impossible 3. You know, that's...
I got it.
Okay, anyway, so...
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Thank you. He tells the story at the end where they talk about, like, some kid who fell off his bike or something like that, and the prophet or proverb or whatever was, we'll see, and he kept saying, we'll see. We'll see. Oh, it's great that he blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see.
I did see that clip. I watched a couple of clips actually a couple of weeks ago.
Right. And then at the end of that story, you can hear the sound. He was talking about you need to check out something that's going on in Afghanistan. There's this new group. And then you hear this commercial airliner flying overhead right at that very moment, to kind of prophetic thing of 9/11. But that's the point I want to state is that I think you need to look at the long-term effect because, and I'm going to mention it right now while I'm thinking about it. George H.W. Bush, the 41st president, the Gulf War, when spectacular victory and just...
we talked about that not too long ago.
You couldn't have been like a better victory.
Right.
And at the time, it was just the greatest thing. But if you did the we'll see, years later, that had a very negative impact on the United States for a variety of reasons. There was kind of, I don't want to say it was a domino effect, but it's like it set in motion events that led to the wars on terror, the attacks, just so many things we should, looking back, we should not have even gotten involved, in my opinion. Yeah. And we did an episode of why I thought that we should not have. And if you get a chance, watch it. I think we called it What If?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Wallace, what if Operation Desert Storm hadn't happened?
Right. So I, you really have to look at the long-term effect of the decisions our presidents make. Then you'll see. Then you can make your judgment call. So that's
what is unfortunate, sort of like George H.W. Bush, is in the moment he's looked at as a good president. And people may say, well, why wasn't he reelected? Well, you ran into a William Howard Taft, Woodrow Wilson effect with Theodore Roosevelt. You had Ross Perot come in and he took away 2-3 million votes.
Yeah, but I mean, at the time we had a recession. He went back on his pledge not to raise taxes.
Yeah,
and then we had a recession. Yeah. And I remember I walked into an office one time to look for work, and there were a bunch of people sitting in the lobby, and they were like, "Can we help you?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm here to drop off a resume." And everyone just started laughing, and I go, "What's so funny?" And they're like, "We're standing here because they are going to announce which of us is going to be laid off." Yeah. So I was like, "Okay, well, I'll just keep my resume," and I walked out. I didn't wait around for the. So yeah, so that was in I think that was in 91, 91 or 92.
So what's interesting is that a president can be perceived as having done a really good job while they're in office and maybe even shortly after, but the mess that they have made of things, well, the following president or even two presidents that may come in are now looked at as terrible presidents. Not so much because of what they're doing, but because of what they're having to clean up from the previous president.
Right.
That sucks.
Right.
But like I said a second ago, people put out these lists all the time of here's, our favorite presidents, or here's the top 10 presidents, or top 45 presidents. We got number 46 in now. Obviously with Joe Biden, a little early. But he is having a well of a time with his pen.
Yes. So 52 executive orders thus far.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
And a good friend of mine lost his job already
because of the oil and gas thing.
Yeah. His company dealt with.
Speaking of
the gas
immediate effects.
Yeah. I mean I remember him saying, "You had a daughter who voted for Biden, did you?" I said, "Yeah," and he said she already regrets it. He goes, "I told her I'm going to lose my job if he's going to shut the pipeline down," and he lost his job. He was with the company for 19 years. They laid off. They laid off. He said 2,000 in Canada, and he said either 40 or 400 in the United States, because of
1,000.
No. Either I think he said 400 people,
Okay.
2,000 in Canada, and 400.
Just with the pipeline, Keystone.
Because of the Keystone pipeline, they lost like a billion or 2 billion because of it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then no green job waiting for him.
No.
Yeah.
As much as John Kerry tried to.
Yeah.
You'll have better jobs. You'll have nothing and you'll love it.
Yeah, you can build solar panels.
Thanks, World Economic Forum. Anyways, all right. So among the list, there's one. Siena College does one. They've been doing a list since 1982. They've done 6 of them. The last one that they did was in 2018. So here is their top 10 from 10 all the way to 1. So JFK, number 10, and then Truman, and then Monroe, Madison, Eisenhower, Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, Lincoln, Franklin Roosevelt, Washington.
I would leave out Franklin Roosevelt.
In the top 10 altogether?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll discuss that. So here is, so C-SPAN does this with a bunch of historians. They've been doing this for quite some time. They do it, I think, every 8 years, I want to say. I'll go 1 all the way to 15. This is their list. Lincoln, Washington, FDR, top 3. It's amazing. Theodore Roosevelt, Eisenhower, so there's your top 5. Truman, Jefferson, Truman at number 6. Anyways, Truman, Jefferson, JFK, Ronald Reagan, and number 10 is Lyndon B. Johnson. Number 11, your pal, Woodrow Wilson. Number 12, also your pal, Barack Obama. And then the final 3 is James Monroe, James K. Polk, and Bill Clinton. So
I think Polk is a underrated, big time.
Yeah,
big time. Under Polk, we acquired Oregon and we acquired the Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some controversy about, well, it was, we went to war with Mexico. It was bound to happen, and it wasn't a bad thing. It was not a bad thing. It worked out pretty well for us, and
it did. Yeah.
And
now here's another one. It's the 2018 presidents. This is 2018. Okay, this is not here recently.
All right.
With the recent impeachment trial of former President Trump, who holds the office of the former president.
Right.
So this is the 2018 Presidents and Executive Politics Presidential Greatness Survey. This is more or less conducted by 2 professors, one out of University of Houston and then another one out of Boise State. And they have Trump in 2018, 2 years into his presidency, at 45, like last place.
Okay.
And they had Barack Obama at number 8. Now, let me put this on here. This was based not on policy, but on polarization. That's what it was said. Based on polarization. Yeah.
Okay. And they put Obama a number. I can understand.
Let me finish because I want to get into that.
Okay.
How Trump conducted himself in office, that's what it's based on, not so much on his achievements. So my question is, how is Barack Obama in the 8th spot? If it's not based on if it's based on polarization and not on achievements.
Yeah, he was just as polarizing as Trump.
He just didn't tweet as much.
No, the difference was that remember Godfather 2, where Michael Corleone had he took the orders, but he had his buffers take care of all the dirty work. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what Obama did. Obama had Rahm Emanuel and George Stephanopoulos and all his little henchmen do all the dirty work. And then George Stephanopoulos was with Bill Clinton, but he did
Susan Rice. And
Susan Rice. Susan Rice. Susan Rice with her, defending
And Loretta Lynch.
Loretta Lynch, yeah, and that one Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder.
Eric Holder.
Right,
I
AG.
did not like Eric Holder.
Right.
George Stephanopoulos was with Bill Clinton. I'm sorry. Obama stood behind. He stood behind all those people. Eric Holder, Lynch. Susan Rice. He sent to defend that guy the
Benghazi
guy,
thing.
Well, not only the Benghazi thing, but then when we traded 5 or 6 high-level Taliban members for a deserter. Now, this complaining about the deserter, I'm getting that from veterans. Not me, because I'm not going to judge the guy because I didn't serve.
Yeah.
But veterans who I've talked to, all the same, are like, that guy was a deserter. He deserved everything he got. So he deserved prison. This is them talking. So to trade 5 or 6 high-level Taliban for this one guy who deserted his post, he sent Susan Rice. And then the Benghazi thing, he sent Susan Rice to lie.
To lie in
on
front
TV.
of everybody. Yeah.
Okay. But he was as polarizing as Trump, but Trump did not have buffers. Trump was the guy who led the way in terms of, he took on the media.
Right.
He took on the media,
and that was the problem. That was the difference. Is like
the
media treated these two past presidents extremely differently. You couldn't find, speaking of polarization, you couldn't find polar opposites more along those lines. All right, so let's talk about how we should be judging presidents. People keep bringing out the morality code or the morality card.
Okay.
About we need a president who is, clean, of high moral standard, different things like that. So a lot of people were saying, let's say a lot of people on the left were outraged about Trump and the way he at least was prior to getting into office.
Right.
But they gave
Bill Clinton a pass.
Yeah, I know. I get it. And that's what I want to say. It's like you have people on the left who were just going after Trump, and then and they're like, how is it that people on the right can support this person? If I don't even want to get into the hypocrisy of that whole thing. But anyways, we go back to the Clinton era, and it was the left defending Clinton, and then the right going after Clinton. I don't think that those things, we've had people in office who were of low moral character. We've had people let's give some examples.
Jimmy Carter is an example of a good moral person.
Exactly.
But he was a terrible
president.
And I remember Jimmy Carter.
And followed up with Ronald Reagan, of another person of high moral character.
Right.
But was a great president.
Correct.
FDR, he had his issues with morality. Warren G. Harding had issues with morality. We can go down, sort of a list.
JFK
had his way. So how much should morality play in how good a president is?
Well, I think morality is important, but it's not the deciding factor. Okay? And the reason why I say that is because the most important thing for the president to do is get the job done and do it right. I like to mention that I look at, say, Trump as your George Patton. George Patton had a mouth. It got him in trouble. He slapped 2 soldiers. That got him in trouble. But Eisenhower and Franklin Roosevelt were smart enough to know that Patton, can we say the word begins with an S? Can we say that? Because that's really the way to say it. I'm going to say it. We can bleep it.
Go ahead.
Patton got shit done.
Yeah.
Trump got shit done. I'll give an example. And I'm not necessarily saying it was the right thing. I'm not saying it was the wrong thing. I really didn't think it made much sense why it didn't take place. But several presidents for the past 20, 30 years kept saying, we need to move the embassy to Jerusalem because that's where the capital is. Yes, the capital is in Jerusalem. It's not in Tel Aviv. And that's a whole conversation. I mean, their Knesset is in Jerusalem. Everything is in Jerusalem. Trump was like, just move it.
Yeah.
And he moved it. He actually moved it. All the other previous presidents were like, yeah, we should move it. We should move it. But now when you hire somebody, do you want to hire somebody who said, yeah, we should win. We should get this sale. We should be able to do this. We need to. Okay, this plant's not productive. Yeah, we should be more productive. Whereas then you get another guy who's got kind of a mouth. He goes in there, he cleans up the place, he gets it going, and sales double, sales triple. Who are you going to hire? Are you going to hire the person who says, yeah, we should, I'd like for it to, or are you going to hire the guy who actually gets the job done? If you hire a coach, a football coach, okay, maybe, I think of like Bobby Knight of Indiana University. He did some stuff.
He said and did some stuff.
He threw a chair, but Bobby Knight was a winner.
Yeah.
Bobby Knight was a winner.
It does come down to, what are you hiring the person for, or what are you voting? Why are you voting the person into office?
Yeah.
And we want the person to be of high moral standard.
Yeah,
we
you
would
do.
like that.
You would.
And the thing is, I think to an extent, like some of that does come into play. If the person has low moral character, it can affect really important decisions for the country,
right?
Foreign and domestic policies, where it's just like, why would we do that? Well, you can tie that right back to their moral character. Of course, they were going to do that because they are an untrustworthy person. They're a person who's just you can't trust them or anything like that. Well, I think that there is some things to be said on, okay, is this a good person? Does this person make us look bad in the public sphere, on the global stage? And we have had people who did that, and I think Trump sort of, to an extent, unfortunately, fits that role because people will say he wasn't presidential. He didn't have a presidential air about him.
I was watching.
And do you think that in itself is an unnecessary standard?
Okay, here's what I'm going to say. And I was thinking about this while you were talking. Charlie Kirk, I think it was Charlie Kirk, did a video where someone questioned, how can you like a president whose moral character is and first of all, we did not hire Trump to be a priest.
Right.
We did not. Okay, but this is what Charlie Kirk said. His response was, look, we've had past presidents who told his audience, his voters, I'm going to do one thing, but he lied. He ended up doing something else. I promise I won't cut taxes.
Yeah.
I promise you can keep your doctor. You don't have to worry with this new plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Right. Okay? Trump comes in, and Trump is like, I'm going to build a wall. And he builds a wall. And then he says, I'm going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And he does it. And Charlie Kirk was giving example after example. I'm going to cut taxes. I'm going to cut regulation. I'm going to put America first. And Trump did it.
Yeah.
Now, what's immoral? Telling your voters one thing and doing another? Or telling your voters you're going to do something and actually doing it? I think telling your voters what you're going to do and actually doing it is more moral than lying to get into office. And then, it's like lying on your resume. So
yeah, I think that's extremely, that's the point.
Yeah.
That's not just a valid point. That is the point. You want the person in office to do the things that is going to be most beneficial for you and your family and your community and ultimately your city and your state.
Yeah.
That's what you want. The American people. And I find it so freaking weird that people, and I don't want this to become like a Trump discussion, but
no, but we're talking about what is a good president.
That's one of the things. Like his moral code, at least going into office, had been he was a playboy billionaire,
very questionable.
Right?
Yeah,
yeah, highly questionable, especially at least 10 years prior, right?
Yeah, there was that audio.
Well, not just that, but he was like a playboy.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching him talk to Congress. I guess he was sort of testifying before Congress, but he was talking about what was going on in New York City with the real estate industry, and how I think Reagan's plan was really hurting the real estate. And so the congressmen were saying, well, Mr. Trump, we really highly respect what you have to say. We know that you have, and they were sort of joking, like, you got a wild life, we can only imagine all the, the wild times, more or less.
Right.
They sort of made a joke out of it. So even Congress and everybody knew about him prior.
Correct.
But he wasn't a politician.
Right.
So he wasn't worried about hiding things. So coming in and being presidential, it's like we didn't hire this person, and we didn't vote this person in to be presidential, to walk around and sound good and look good. We have this person because we see the situation in the country and we want certain things done. This person has said they will get certain things done, and that's what we wanted to have done. Right. And I think that the moral question comes down to, as a politician, what is your number one moral priority? Tell the truth.
Yeah.
And it's always been,
it doesn't do any good to have an ineffective president who can't get anything done, but he's a good person.
Right.
Are you going to keep that person to run your company? No.
Yeah.
Are you going to have, who was it? Jack Pardee, when we had the Houston Oilers. Jack Pardee was a stand-up guy, a nice guy, but he, his last year, he was failing bad. Really bad. And they got rid of him.
Yeah.
They're like, look, we like Jack Pardee as a man, but he's ineffective as a coach.
Eventually, the run and shoot.
Yeah, and then they got rid of the run and shoot, and
didn't cut it anymore. And then after the
no, they should have called it the cut and shoot.
Yeah. Well, that's what they did after they fired him. They cut him and
shot him in the leg. Yeah.
No.
But,
all right. So morality, acting presidential. And then, it's getting things done. Policies. Like there has to be a certain, I think the American people have things sort of twisted to where we're not looking at what's important. We're not looking at the president is the policymaker. Foreign and domestic policy. Like, this is the guy who is representing the country.
He sets the agenda of where this country is headed. And
there are a lot of people who liked Obama's agenda on one side of the aisle, and then there were a lot of people who liked Trump's agenda on one side. That has been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, it depends on which direction you want the country to go.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to look at it. And that's when I saw Lyndon Johnson on there. Lyndon Johnson, if you're Lyndon Johnson at the time was hated even by the left because of the Vietnam War. That's the reason why he quit the race in 68. I don't know if he would have even got the nomination. I think Herbert Humphrey out of Minnesota got the nomination, lost to Nixon. Johnson set in motion the welfare state in this country. The war on poverty, and which is why I wouldn't even put him in the top 30.
Yeah.
I'd put him pretty low. He got us into the Vietnam War with no clear victory in sight, and at the same time he got us into the war on poverty, which actually really made things worse. And if you listen to Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams, they will even say, and even Larry Elder, they will even say that the war on poverty, the long-term effect has been devastating to the black community.
Right, yeah.
So
the creation of the Great Society.
Yeah.
That is one of the issues, and we can talk about that. Like, understanding economics in policy has been the downfall of a lot of presidents, and unfortunately, some of them don't get the credit that they deserve, and I mean like the bad credit, right? There's a big difference in the credit Herbert Hoover gets and the credit Lyndon Johnson gets, right? I mean, there's a reason why Lyndon Johnson rounds out the top 10 according to all these historians in the C-SPAN survey, and Herbert Hoover is way down the list. Is it deserved?
Yeah. Hoover.
Yes.
Yeah. Hoover did.
It is deserved.
Yeah.
Right?
Hoover turned a recession into a depression, and Franklin, and this is why FDR does not deserve much accolades. FDR prolonged the depression. I mean,
by like.
If it
luckily,
wasn't World War II, yeah, okay. The New Deal did not get us out of the depression.
No,
the New Deal prolonged the depression, while some other countries were able to get out of the depression. The United States was still in the depression up until 41, 42, when we went to war.
Yeah.
Then things started to change, and then when our troops came back after the war was over with all that money in their pockets, boom.
And here's the thing, like, let's make a quick comparison if you don't mind. Herbert Hoover, the Great Depression starts with him. He's like, you're done. Nobody's voting for you. FDR takes his place. He's voted in, and there's a sympathy that comes with FDR as he has inherited this bad situation, this terrible situation, perpetuates it with all the social programs, and extends it until World War II more or less breaks out, and we start doing all of the shipbuilding and tanks and planes, and it's like you're making hand over fist.
Yeah, everybody was employed at that point.
And there were things that he did during the war and leading up to us getting in the war that was a good thing. There was like with Britain, I think they were like, if we're selling you something, you're paying for it.
Yeah,
we're not lending it to you.
I think that's how we got Diego Garcia. I believe so. I think we need to look that up.
Okay.
There were some territories. I think Diego Garcia, I believe, in the Indian Ocean belonged to Britain, and FDR was like, okay, well, if you want these destroyers, we're not going to just give them away.
Yeah.
And actually, legally, I don't think he could give them away because we were a neutral nation, and by law, you can't just give things away as a gift to a belligerent nation. So we had what was called the Lend Lease. So
there was a lot of things that he did well, especially during the wartime.
Yes.
But his understanding of economics was not good.
Yeah. Well, he was surrounded by communists. People and they were communist. Okay, Alger Hiss was a communist. The man who was the vice president from 41 to 45.
Yeah, now you're gonna have me.
Right. Well, he was the he ran against Truman in 48. Wallace, the vice president of the United States, Henry Wallace.
Wallace.
Not William Wallace. Henry. Henry Wallace was either a communist or he was a Marxist in terms of socialist Marxism. In terms of his belief.
Yeah, I mean, if your understanding of economics is based on Marxism, that's not good for a country. That's not good for your home.
Right. So Henry Wallace, who was our vice president, and when it looked like FDR was not going to survive his fourth term, they got him out and they put Truman in.
Yeah. And so you have this sympathetic role that people give FDR because, well, it wasn't his fault that the Great Depression took place. And there are so many people. I even watched one today when I was doing some research of like, all right, people's lists. And there was this one, and it's got like 5 million views on it. And he's got this top 10. And he gives credit to FDR for getting America out of the Great Depression. His social plans got America out of and I'm like, no, come on. Like, that is a myth that should be debunked by now, much like the theory of evolution. Anyways, another sympathetic figure.
Wow, that's another story.
Another sympathetic figure is Barack Obama. He inherits the Great Recession, but his economic plans perpetuate the problem. And he was saying, he's like, well, this 1% to 2% growth is the new normal. Interestingly enough, Jimmy Carter said the same exact thing. Yeah. He's like, this 2% growth, 1% to 2%, this is just the way it's going to be. And then Reagan takes over and it jumps dramatically. Right? And everybody was like, okay.
He was like, all these jobs, these manufacturing jobs, what's Trump going to do? Going to wave a magic wand?
And that's what he did.
And
his magic pen.
And Yeah, I mean, a lot of manufacturing jobs did come back in areas that he got plants to remain in the United States. So yeah, I mean,
But you
don't
see
get me
what I'm saying?
started
It's
on
like
that one. Yeah,
the people give Obama this break. Like, okay, well, he inherited a bad situation, and indeed he did, much like FDR did. But the plans, the things that you do, can make it worse, and that is exactly what FDR did, and that's exactly what Obama did. They made decisions that actually, instead of helping things grow, restricted growth.
correct.
And much like, Obama did, I mean, he did the same thing that W did. Let's bail out these massive companies,
Right.
which is
Yeah, I
such
mean
a joke.
the deficit and the debt. The deficit, when Bush left, I remember, I remember when under Reagan, when the deficit was about 200 billion, and it went up a little bit more under the first Bush. But then when we had over $1 trillion deficit, I was like, holy crap, the dollar is going to collapse. I don't think we can sustain deficits of that sort. And that just added to the debt. The debt had doubled under Obama.
Yeah.
If you put all the previous 43 presidents, didn't compare to what happened under Obama. I mean, he had more in terms of the debt, the total debt. So that, and again, yes, did Obama inherit the Great Recession? Yes, he did, but he did apply for the job, and he said that he's up to the challenge of fixing the problem. So you can't give too much sympathy to a person who was stating, "Hey, I can fix it." It's like that guy. My dad's got an awesome set of tools. He's a TV repairman. He can fix it.
What is that?
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay, never saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You're a generation behind me.
I'm a generation or two behind you.
Yeah.
So speaking
Spicoli.
Speaking of economic policies, like that is a huge thing because that affects everyone.
Yeah.
Clinton, you and I have had this conversation. The economy boomed after George H.W. Bush left. The economy boomed under Bill Clinton.
Correct.
But you say it only happened because...
Well, what I was saying is that the economy was still kind of stagnating a bit, and in the '94 election, that now in '92, after the '92 election, the Democrats had the House and the Senate, so they were able to push a bunch of stuff. But in the '94 election, Bill Clinton's actions and the House and the Senate's actions led to a revolt among the American people. You had Newt Gingrich, he came in with his contract with America, and the House of Representatives had been controlled by the Democrats for 40 years. Well, in the '94 election, the Republicans captured the House and the Senate. So Newt Gingrich becomes the Speaker of the House.
Right.
So obviously things had gone bad in '93 and '94, or that wouldn't have happened. But that's really, if you look at, when Newt Gingrich shut down the government. I don't know if you remember that there were all these government shutdowns.
Yeah.
And I remember Newsweek magazine put a picture of Newt Gingrich on the Grinch, and they called him the Gingrich who stole Christmas. Yeah, if you can find it, it's a Newsweek from '94. But they were able to, and George Stephanopoulos was there at the time, and they were able to make Newt Gingrich and the Republicans look bad. But Newt Gingrich was the one that put the brakes on the spending. It's why we had the government shutdown. And then lo and behold, that's when we started having, the deficits were over. And we started, collecting more.
And of course, everybody credits
Clinton
with balancing the budget.
Balancing the budget, when really Gingrich was the one that should have gotten the credit. But yeah, we had the dot-com boom. Things were actually going very well during that time. Now there were some There were some long-term problems, like with what went on with North Korea. We practically gave North Korea and Red China all this technology, and we enabled Red China and North Korea to become the nuclear power. Well, Red China was already a nuclear power, but Red China got a lot of technology. You read that book about
the China threat.
The China threat. Okay, and that a lot of that took place during Clinton's time.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty much when it was written.
And then with North Korea, practically giving North Korea carte blanche on their nuclear facilities. So. So there were some long-term effects, and the dot-com boom eventually came to an end, and that bubble collapsed.
Here's another thing that people just, like, when we talk about, like, not really following what the media says, and this is not just modern-day media. This is going way back. Everybody always says that Nixon was a bad president because of
Watergate.
Watergate.
Right.
When in fact,
he was
there were so many other things that were bad about his presidency. He opened up the door to China in 1972, which really has led to where we are now. And then he also did the price and wage controls.
Right.
Which totally, screwed up the economy as well.
He got us off the gold standard. I'm still thinking that was a bad idea. Some people said it's great because now we were able to expand and borrow and this and that.
Right. Your borrowing power is better. But what does the Bible say? The borrower is slave to the lender. So.
Yeah. So.
Bigger chance for slavery. So. There are.
Now he did was a Title 9 or 13 or something.
Bankruptcy?
No, about the
the
women's
NCAA?
sports. Yeah, NCAA. So that allowed women's sports. I'm
surprised he's not in the top 10 because of that.
Well, what's funny is that
because I say that tongue in cheek, but that's one of the issues that really irk me is that we give nowadays so much credit to presidents for the little social. Moral high ground, the virtue signaling that we do, which actually does not help anyone in an economic sense. And it's sort of like, why are you involved in this? Sort of like when Congress got involved with the baseball steroids. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you involved in this?
Yeah.
You know?
That was
it's just
dumb.
little things like that. And it's virtue signaling that irritates the crap out of me. It's like, you're not the president, so you can do...
Or they have like the presidents of the major oil companies so that they can sit and yell, "Why is gasoline $4 a gallon?"
Yeah.
But or they would bring in Mark Zuckerberg and Dorsey and all that. You're being and nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Nothing ever
it's a
happens.
Freaking charade.
That's all it is a charade. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So. Or the impeachment, which Trump, I mean, they knew that he was going to be acquitted.
It's another
charade.
So
why did you even bother with it? Okay, we have some issues that we need to fix, but no, they wanted to concentrate on.
And it's like you're undermining the Constitution again.
Correct.
But they don't.
And you know what? And this is what pisses me off more than anything. What the hell is Senator Leahy doing presiding? You can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the head of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
Obvious on its face subversion of the Constitution.
You can't have somebody who is obviously biased and is part of the problem presiding over the impeachment. You can't do that. That's like having Michael Corleone. I gotta do this. I'm sorry. Having Michael Corleone and then putting one of his henchmen as the presiding officer, the presiding judge.
If you haven't watched Godfather 2, before watching any more of our shows moving forward, you better go do it.
Watch Godfather 1 and 2.
Because I think you do this probably once a month.
There's so much to learn from that.
It is. And it has, I think, a lot to do with our modern day politics.
Yeah, listen, he and I, and this is why we love talking to Dr. Joe Wolverton, because we are disgusted with the direction that DC, the swamp or whatever, have twisted our federal government. It was not meant to be this way. And if you look at our founding fathers, and this is why I value our beginning founding fathers, I give them so much high esteem, because they read the works of previous historians and philosophers, and they knew that like George Washington didn't want political parties.
Yeah.
He wanted presidents to concentrate on what's best for the country, not what's best for your party.
Yeah.
He wanted the Congress to do the same thing. Granted, yes, he understood. I mean, even within his own cabinet, he had Hamilton and Jefferson who were always at each other's throat. But he felt that Hamilton and Jefferson were the best in the country, and he put the best. Abraham Lincoln did the same thing. There were a lot of guys in his cabinets who hated his guts.
Yeah.
But he's like, you know what? I'm going to put these guys because these guys are great. That's a mark of a good leader.
That is a mark of a good leader.
But look at,
Mark of a bad leader is having a bunch of yes men.
Yes. But if you look at our founding fathers, what they did, and we're talking Washington, we're talking Jefferson, Adams, Madison, and even men who weren't presidents, Benjamin Franklin and Hamilton, and they put in place a system. They were not perfect men, but they put in a system that's still working today. Now you have men and women that are screwing it up.
Yeah.
But
they're trying to dismantle it.
Right. But you have you look at this last election, how much of a dispute there was. And yes, there was what happened on January the 6th. But through it all, we still had the changing of the guard on January the 20th.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump still left office.
Right.
Now,
as Lincoln said, like ballots over bullets.
Yeah. So Trump didn't like it. His fans didn't like it. But when it came down to it, the system prevailed.
Yeah.
And we still had the changing of the guard. You still had a man, Trump, who still felt that he was cheated. He still left. Credit those angry white men, as everyone likes to call them, those patriarchs, those colonists, whatever you want to call them. They created a system that to this day still works.
Yeah.
And
has benefited not just Americans, but people around the world.
Right, which is why I want to put our first few presidents, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, and John Quincy Adams too, although he was still not, but he was a brilliant man.
Yeah.
But and even Andrew Jackson, he was the last of our founding fathers. He did fight in the Revolutionary War. Those guys, more in the beginning ones, they set in motion a system that still works. It's the best in the world, and it's the best in history because they learned from their history, and they wanted to put our country first. Yes, Jefferson and Adams had their issues, with the what was that act when we had the
Alien Sedition.
Alien and Sedition Act, where Jefferson and Madison I think it was the Kentucky resolves and the Virginia resolves, where they're like, just ignore, nullificate. That's where the whole nullification thing came in. Adams wasn't perfect. I liked Adams, but they really did create a system that benefited us over the years. And this is why I was saying the whole we'll see. Well, we'll see. It's still now over 200 years, and that system is still going.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of wartime, speaking of Adams, let's talk about some situational moments for presidents that did well or didn't do well, starting with John Adams. John Adams with the quasi-war with France. Thoughts on that?
We had what was known as that XYZ affair, and but Adams did not want to rush the United States into a war with France. Whether we would have won or not, France had their hands full with Britain. You had all these Napoleonic wars. They were fighting Prussia and Russia and Austria and I mean, all these countries. So yeah, France had their hands full, but we ended up, by not going to war with them, we ended up getting the Louisiana Purchase.
Yeah, but that's with Jefferson.
Right? Yes, it was, but it helped out because these were still the same folks.
Right.
Napoleon was acquiring his power during this time, and granted, yes, there were reasons. Haiti with the Haitian Revolution. France, Napoleon just was like, you know what, let's just concentrate. We're not going to be able to have this big empire in North America. Let's concentrate on Europe for right now. We had the Louisiana Purchase. It worked out pretty well for us because it doubled the size of the United States. Yeah. So,
but John Adams, with the Alien Sedition Act, I think that was obviously hurt himself.
It did.
Big time, and hurt the American people.
Yes.
Long term.
Yes.
That was a long-term effect because it was reinstituted more or less during Wilson.
Yes.
Woodrow Wilson. So that had a lasting impact. And it's so interesting that, John Adams had spoken so powerfully and written so powerfully about, the freedom of, people and freedom of speech and all these things. And then all of a sudden he wants to put this into play. And not only, did people it was sort of, if you're French or if you're a French sympathizer, keep an eye out and blah, blah, blah. Also, one of the congressmen was thrown in jail because of something that he had written derogatory about John Adams. Not even so much about, his policies or anything, but how he looked.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're going to talk bad about me? You're going down. So, Thomas Jefferson.
Okay.
Thoughts on Thomas Jefferson? I'm a huge fan.
I love Jefferson.
I'm a huge fan of Jefferson. Not in some instances, I'm not. I think to a certain instance, he was too much of an idealist.
Yeah.
But luckily for that idealism, we got the Declaration of Independence as well.
Right. Now he did start a recession because of I think he was trying to, and I had to read up on that. There was something like a tariff that he was responsible for, which did lead to a recession. But the thing that I love about Jefferson the most, the Louisiana Purchase.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
but that had to do with wartime, making a decision during wartime, taking care of the Barbary pirates.
Barbary pirates
was a huge thing.
And
then expanding our navy.
Right. We had we can credit Jefferson because of the navy. Now, granted, yes, the navy, they did start building. I think the Constitution was built before Jefferson. The USS Constitution was built, I believe, under Adams's administration.
Okay.
So that was
but
before
Jefferson. But it was
Jefferson.
such a small.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a frigate. It wasn't. It was not like
friggin' frigate.
It was a frigate. Well, yeah. I mean, but if you want to see a huge ship, look at the British ships. Mm-hmm. Those were some huge ships. Lots and lots of guns. Far more than the USS Constitution was.
Right.
But Jefferson and Adams met with one of the leaders or one of the ambassadors of the Barbary pirates, one of the North African states. And, Americans were being captured and enslaved because we no longer had the protection of the Royal Navy. So when Jefferson and Adams, when they were ambassadors at the time, or secretaries, they met with, I think they were ambassadors, they met with one of the ambassadors in London. And they're like, why are you enslaving our people and capturing our ships? And, the ambassador was like, our religion allows it.
Yeah. You're there.
And you're an infidel. So, Jefferson had purchased the Quran. He had a copy of the Quran. Mm-hmm. And so he knew what needed to be done. And he said, we are not going to pay tribute. Yeah. Because granted, yes, that might help us now, but in the long term, we're going to look as a weak country.
Yeah.
So
and interestingly enough, France and Portugal and Britain, they were all just paying for passage more or less along the African coast.
That ended eventually.
Yeah, but we were the ones who ended it. At least we were the ones who said this isn't going to work anymore.
We're not going to pay it.
But
and that's what Jefferson
that was one of the surprises that they found out was everybody's paying us off.
Yeah.
This is just. It's business. Yeah. It's not personal.
Yeah. So. So
taken.
that's another thing that I loved about Jefferson
Yeah.
was the fact that he's like, no, we're gonna go where we please, and if you fire on us, well, then we're gonna blockade your country. We're gonna invade. We're gonna send Marines to your country, which is what we did.
Yeah, I would highly encourage you to do some reading on our fight with the Barbary Pirates. We talk about some really cool stories. All right.
You had Decatur and Eaton and Bainbridge, I think. Yeah, so those three guys came out.
Just some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Sneaking onto a boat, setting it on
Yeah,
fire.
they blew up a ship. I don't know if it was the Philadelphia. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was one of our ships.
Yeah,
that
one
they
of our
had
ships was
stolen and
captured. Yeah.
You want to keep this thing?
Yeah.
Well,
so we blew it up in their harbor.
yeah, which is pretty.
We snuck in at night and blew it up.
It was a SEAL Team 6 operation.
Even the Brits were like going, "Wow, those Americans, they've got some, you know." Can we say it? Balls.
You know what it takes to be a salesman? It takes brass balls.
There you go.
You ever see that movie, Glenn Ross?
No, he told me about that. You know, I had somebody tell me a long time ago.
You must see that movie.
Yeah,
you must see that movie. Anyways, all right.
There's like coffee is for losers or whatever, winners.
Yeah, coffee's for closers.
There you go.
Yeah. So let's look at the obvious Abraham Lincoln in wartime. Wartime Abraham Lincoln. Your thoughts on him? Because I know you've got issue with the Fort Sumter thing.
I'm mixed about Lincoln, and the reason why I'm mixed about Lincoln is that he turned America into what Hamilton and John Jay and Madison said we wouldn't be. The general government, I heard this from Wolverton. He said, Dr. Wolverton said that it was known as the general government out of Philadelphia, then New York, then Washington. The federal government, general government, was supposed to be, in terms of power, here, and the states were supposed to be here. You know, the states trumped the general government. But Lincoln flipped it and weakened the states' rights. Now, we can't say it enough. Slavery is an abomination, which should never have happened. We should never have had.
We shouldn't have had it.
Ended it. We should have ended it after
we wrote it down.
Right.
Here's the way that we feel.
Right.
Should it have been here? Yes. Unfortunately, it was here because that was one of the major complaints against King George III. Is like, you forced us to take in slaves.
Yeah.
And now you've left us with this problem to deal with on our own now that we're going to be our own nation.
Right.
It was slavery was an institution from the beginning of civilization, more or less.
Right.
And, you know, we had to address that problem. I don't want to get caught up in that, but
we have to say this.
Not just with slavery though. This was a circumstance of, will the Union stay together? And it's one of those things where it's just like, it's like, okay, desperate times calls for desperate measures. That whole idea. What do you do? You know, people will say like, "Oh, you gotta abide by the Constitution," and I'm 100% behind that.
Right.
But it's like, well, you've got states that are now leaving the Union. What do? You beg them to come back?
Well, here's the problem: is that okay? Although the cause, Lincoln did not fight the Civil War because of slavery. He fought the Civil War to hold the Union together.
Right, but the Southern states got out
because it was states' rights, but at the same time, slavery was a huge issue. Okay, so
I'm just saying, the states got out because of slavery, because they knew he was going to be coming for that.
But here's the problem: is that, you know, if your wife leaves you, are you going to beat her up to keep her in your marriage?
Yes.
Okay. We lost 600,000 men were killed. Yeah. Okay. Now, I was reading where if you look at it in terms of today, it would be equivalent to like losing something like 17 million. If you, in terms of the percentages of the men the men or the people killed and how large our nation was in terms of population, that would be like killing 17 million Americans. I think that was the number. It might be even higher than that. It was in the millions.
Wow.
So if California and Vermont and some states are going to say, you know what, or Texas, even Texas, and there's just a secessionist movement going on in Texas, and if they're going to sit and say, look, we're going to use the very same words that Jefferson used in the Declaration of Independence, that when there comes a time when people are just like,
when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends.
Right. It's time to cut the ties. Yeah. Well, you can't justify killing 17 million Americans to preserve a union with people who don't want to be part of the country anymore. Yeah. So this is, I mean, I'm glad that the United States stayed intact, but at the same time, the method done to preserve it, I mean, there were some states that were like, we're not going to do this. When Lincoln said, I want to call up 75,000 men to storm South Carolina, there were some states that were like, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to kill our fellow Americans for that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give Lincoln a bad mark for doing that, because I can't justify killing 600,000 people to hold together a union where the people they wanted to just say, look, we want to go do our own thing. Now, the reason for what they were doing, I do not support. I'm sorry. Yeah, I do have some sympathies with the Confederation. We're Texas. But in terms of the slavery, I was watching a movie called Gettysburg. Yeah. Let me finish this before somebody sends this in and says, hey, Alan, Wakim supports slavery.
All right, here we go.
In the movie Gettysburg, the guy who played Longstreet, I forgot his name. He was in the movie Platoon.
Keep talking. I'll come up with it.
In the movie Gettysburg, the guy who played Longstreet,
Berenger.
Tom Berenger, yeah. Tom Berenger played Longstreet, and Longstreet was talking to this British guy, and he said, we should have freed the slaves first, then declared our independence and seceded, because, he was saying he couldn't justify fighting to protect slavery, and at the same time he knew that countries like Britain couldn't justify recognizing the Confederacy because of slavery. So he felt that it would have been better for them to just say, look, we're going to end slavery now, but because we just don't see eye to eye with the North, we're we're like, this is like a club. We don't want to be part of this club anymore. We want to leave, end our membership, and go form our own little club. And that was in Gettysburg. So that's why, before somebody cancel cultures, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, like, you have it to where, okay, how do you actually view the situation? Do you view it as, we have got to free these millions of people that are in bondage, and therefore I can, and I'm talking from like Lincoln's perspective, I can justify however many people are going to be killed. Now, I think Lincoln probably did feel that way, especially after his second inaugural address. He says every drop of blood taken with the lash of the whip, if you have to, more or less even that out with the gun and the sword, he says, then so be it. The ways of God are just. That's what he was saying.
Again, but killing 600,000 people. Now, look at Rhodesia.
But what I'm saying is, like, if he says you've got these millions of people, and they are people, and we may not be able to live with each other. Who knows?
Right. You can't. I won't argue with you on that. I won't argue with on that part. But I would say, if you look at Rhodesia and South Africa, which were apartheid nations, we didn't invade those two countries and kill like a certain percentage of the population to end apartheid. Economic sanctions worked to end apartheid in South Africa and in Rhodesia. So,
I don't think I think that's
They,
like
it could
that's
have.
like apples
It could
and
have.
oranges, though.
No. They could have if the South had seceded, or the South, when the South seceded, instead of attacking and burning Atlanta and destroying, there could have been a economic blockade, or not a blockade, an economic sanctions. All the industries were in the North.
That may be true, but
I don't think
in the South
South
they were going to be able to build as well.
but
And they also had coasts. And they
Yeah.
also had countries that were looking
You know,
at,
but-
jumping in. And
you
I
know
think
what?
we are getting off the topic. Thank
That's,
you.
you know what? We are.
Yeah,
That is true.
thank you very
That is-
much.
See what happens when we.
Yeah,
you know.
you get all like your butthole, like it's real tight because you get worried about, getting canceled. Who cares? You want to cancel us?
Hey,
cancel us.
that girl from
Gina Carano, God bless her
Yes.
heart. Yeah.
Look what happened to her. you know?
Yeah, and hers was actually like it was whatever, a joke.
Yeah.
Anyways, wartime. Let's move into your buddy Woodrow Wilson.
All right, Woodrow Wilson.
Let me ask you this: do you think that Woodrow Wilson held out as long as he possibly could before getting into the war? Because it started in 14, we didn't get it until 17.
Right. Now he had already won his re-election. He won his re-election in 1916, and now keep in mind, back then you did not take the oath of office until I think March. Okay, but we declared war with Germany the very next month in April. So the promise during the 1916 campaign was he kept us out of war. So he wins the election, takes the oath of office, and the very next month, we declare war on Germany. And now we're in the war.
Yeah. Right
so,
move? Wrong move?
I mean, it was... I think, again, I didn't support America being in either world war for a variety of reasons. It helped out, it helped out France, it helped out France, and it helped out Britain. But then look what France and Britain did with their victory. And I think the Europeans needed to fix their own problem. They needed to, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but there was a chance that we would have gone to war with Britain in 1914 because they were doing to us in 1914 what they did to us in 1812. They were taking over our ships.
Yeah.
That's why we went to war with them in 1812, because they were taking over our ships. And now what they did, they had a blockade of.
And do you
of
want to
Germany.
reference Madison and how he dealt with War of 1812?
In which
Like,
part?
Did he do a good job? I mean, that was.
Did he do a good job? I think he was in over his head, but the War of 1812 was needed because Britain never really respected our independence. But the War of 1812, especially with the fact, now granted, yes, we signed the Treaty of Ghent prior to the Battle of New Orleans, but the Battle of New Orleans was such a thorough ass-kicking of Great Britain that they have never gone to war with us since.
That's right.
And they learned...
Well, they've gone to war with us.
No, I mean war against us. We've never fought Britain since.
Yeah.
But now we've had disputes with them, but it really took the War of 1812 to get Britain to finally say, you know what? They're producing babies. They're getting tough. They stood toe-to-toe with us. Yes, granted, we burned their capital, but, Fort McHenry didn't fall. And they fought us at Baltimore and...
Oh, sick.
Yes. So they came to the realization America was not a pushover. And Napoleon got out.
Yeah, he was done.
He was. Well, I mean, they captured Napoleon and they held him on the Isle of Elba. But shortly after the Battle of New Orleans.
Isle of Mulva.
Elba, not Mulva.
Okay.
Elba. Shortly after the Battle of New Orleans, Napoleon escaped and reestablished his power. And then they had, the Battle of Waterloo. Granted, yes, they defeated France, but, Britain, I think, just realized in 1815, we couldn't kick America's ass. We stood toe to toe with them. They stood toe to toe with us. But America, let's be friends with them. They're a growing economic power. Let's be buddies with them.
They're our cousins.
They're our cousins. That they'll help us out. We've got our hands full with Europe, and in Britain was fighting all these different wars. They had the Crimean War. 2 generations later, they had the Barbary pirates. India. They were fighting wars in India. In 1857, they were fighting the Sepoy War, the Sepoy Revolt. So they had their hands full with Russia. Russia was sitting in. They had, I think it was called the Game. I think that's what it was called, where Britain and France were trying to acquire as much territory in Asia as possible. I think it was called the Game. I have to look that up.
So, all right. So Woodrow Wilson gets us in World War I.
Yeah.
He brings back the Sedition Act.
Yes, he does.
Pretty much pulls, a John Adams.
Yeah. But all those men who died in World War I died in vain, I'm sorry to say. They really did.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because the politicians screwed everything up.
Yeah.
Now, to an extent, Woodrow Wilson, and I think you and I have talked about that, especially on our World War I talks, is the 14 points probably could have worked.
Yeah.
Probably was the right thing to do, but there were too many nations that got in the way.
Yeah.
One in particular, France.
Yeah. France lost 1.6 million sons and villages that were completely wiped out. And they were not about to let Germany get away with that. So, but their actions, okay, this is the whole we'll see thing.
Yeah.
Their actions, the Treaty of Versailles, all right, we gave it to Germany. We gave it to them good. Okay, that was in June 28, 1919. And within 20 years, they were on the doorsteps of having yet another world war.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, 2-3 months later, from June 28 until 2 months later, I think Hitler and Stalin signed the non-aggression treaty. That was in August. Yeah, so 20 years and 2 months.
You're better at dates than I am.
Yeah.
So speaking of World
August
War II,
23rd,
FDR, FDR, we get involved. FDR, we've already touched on that. We think he did a pretty good job during the war. I think he did a good job with all right, let's boost our our production.
He did.
Let's get and then that really ripped us right out of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And then the Lend-Lease Act, once they didn't have any more money, like okay, well we'll still build you stuff, but you owe us. You're going to keep paying us.
Yeah.
And then with that APR financing. So I think he did a good job with that. And I think putting, obviously, he was freaking blessed with the generals that he had. In the army that he had. And to an extent, World War I played a big role in making sure that happened. So
yes, that's correct.
Yes, they may have died for no reason, but it really put our military on the map as a superpower after World War I.
Right.
So not all lost.
No. I mean, there were. I mean, obviously, there were some good things that took place because of the First World War. Yes, you had Patton, you had MacArthur. They were two big stars in the First World War. And we ended up in the Second World War. I mean, a who's who of some of the greatest generals and admirals. Eisenhower, MacArthur. You had Patton, Bradley,
LeMay.
Curtis LeMay.
Nimitz.
Yeah, in World War. Yeah, Nimitz, King, and then Halsey, Spruance, Fletcher.
Yeah.
So
it's like an all-star cast.
Yeah. I mean, we really had Claire Chennault, who fought in China, the Flying Tigers. Just some Jimmy Doolittle. I mean, wow, we just really hammered it.
Yeah.
We really hammered.
And what sucks for FDR is that he did not get to see the end of the war.
He lived long enough to know it was over.
It was, with the Germans, for sure.
He lived long enough. Japan, he didn't know, but
he probably didn't know how it was going to pan out. And Truman said, "I got 2 ways to pan this out.
Yeah, and FDR, he was criticized for some of the stuff he did, with the Japanese Americans.
Correct.
That's a whole debate in and of itself on was it the right thing to do, and
because Wilson, I think, was wanting to consider the same thing with the Germans during World War One, and I think in World War Two, FDR was considering doing the same thing with the Germans.
Yeah.
And, and I think even the Italians.
I think there were some Germans and Italians that were, and even Canada got in on the act with interning people. But you have to kind of blame what happened in Hawaii. There was one of the islands, the Nihai incident, where there was a Japanese pilot who crashed in one of the Hawaiian islands, and there was a Japanese couple. They were American, but they were of Japanese descent, and they sided with the pilot and tried to take over the island. That did not help matters for the Japanese, because that actually had an influence.
I've never heard that story.
The Nihai incident. Yeah, one of the pilots from the carriers crashed on that island. It's a small Hawaiian island.
Yeah.
They killed the pilot and the Japanese descendant American that tried to help. But that actually influenced the policy making to intern the Japanese, because they're like, if they can do that, then we have 100,000 Japanese people of Japanese descent in the United States, which is why they did. Now, whether that was a smart thing or a dumb thing, that's a whole nother debate, which I don't want to get into before somebody cancels us.
Yeah, and so moving on from that, Truman dropped the bomb. He's like, all right, we're done.
Yeah, that smartest thing. That was, but
and we've had if you're like, hey, wait a minute, we did a super long, thorough discussion just not too long ago, towards the end of last year. I think August of last year, which is the anniversary of the dropping of the bomb.
And I had one of my Tuesday night lives was on it.
And so we've gone into a big discussion on, was that the right choice? Yes, we believe that it was, and for numerical reasons, just at that, it was the right choice.
Yeah.
And Korean War, however.
Hold on. I want to mention one thing that I love. I love the fact that Truman desegregated the military.
Right.
Smart. It needed to be done.
Just
come on.
Already.
Yeah. Just
for Pete's sake.
Yeah. So he.
And so the Korean War was the first war that it was
that
desegregated.
Yeah. Now he screwed the pooch.
But I think it was towards the end. But
he didn't want to win the Korean War. He didn't want to lose.
When did he desegregate the war? Was that 1950?
No. It was like in 47 or 48.
Okay.
So it was one of his executive orders. So so they were desegregated prior to the Korean War. So the Korean War, you had blacks and whites fighting side by side, as they should have.
And with the Korean War, he did not do a good job.
No, he did not.
He tried to control that too much. He tried to do too much.
I can understand why he did not want to go to war with the Soviets and with Red China.
Right.
Now, had he gone to war with Red China, I don't think it would have been that bad. Mm-hmm. MacArthur had a plan which did involve nuclear weapons.
Correct.
To knock China out, as he said, for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
But, look, we still, to this day, have problems with China and North Korea.
No.
Yeah. Okay, and it's been how many years now? 70 years?
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. We're still suffering. I'm not suffering, it's not the right word. A lot of people in China, in Korea,
they're
suffering
because of the
decisions Truman made.
Yeah.
He should have just let MacArthur
have at it. And then he ended up firing him. And he fired him for good reason when it comes to insubordination, but at the same time, it's like, you're the commander-in-chief, but you're not running the show in a war in a place that you've actually never even stepped foot on.
Right.
The closest you ever got to was Wake Island. And so his decision to fire MacArthur, who was, a god amongst men, not a good choice. And that is the reason why he had no chance of re-election. And so Eisenhower comes in on the promise that he would go to Korea. He did. And that war ended.
Wasn't it already that one amendment? I think that amendment had already passed by then. I think.
What?
The amendment that stated you could be The one where you limits the number of times a president can run for office.
Yeah, but I mean, he still could have been elected because FDR died during his first term.
So, yeah, but he would have been president. He was already president for practically 8 years.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't? Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure about that one. I have to look. Yeah.
Yeah, you and I have had that conversation, and then after I let you take
but he would
have
been president for 12 years.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's why. Yeah. So.
Well, he was a very unpopular president when he left. He had one of the lowest ratings when he left office.
Yeah, and according to this, he is number 6.
Yeah.
And number 5, according to the C-SPAN, is Dwight D Eisenhower.
Now, Dwight D Eisenhower, the international highway system, all those interstate highway system, that's because of him. He was impressed with the Autobahn in Germany. Yeah. Very impressed.
Well, just going through the wartime, he got out of that pretty quick, and then there was no, wars after that. The military-industrial complex really escalated under him, and then he decides to warn us about the military-industrial complex. Yeah. And I always find that very odd that he's warning America about the military-industrial complex. I'm like, dude, you're the one using the CIA, and all this for everything to an extent.
Yeah. Well, Eisenhower. I'm going to say that I'm going to have some criticisms of Eisenhower. In 1956, he let the Soviets invade Hungary, and at the same time, he stopped Israel, England, and France from practically annihilating Nasser of Egypt. I would have just said, you know what, Nasser's not a very good guy. I'm staying out of this.
Yeah, sometimes when you are the most powerful nation on earth, like you want to get your hands in everything.
And I think he should have just stayed out of the Suez Crisis, but he should have got involved in the Hungary revolt. He let them down. I'm sorry. He let all those people. If you don't know about what happened in Hungary in October of 1956, read about it. It was wow. Okay, that's all I have to say. If you're impressed with what happened with the fall of the Berlin Wall, read about the Hungary crisis of October '56. We really let those Hungarians down. They wanted freedom, and we just so.
We pick and chose too often, like which fights we were going to be in.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we always chose like a lot of like the fights in Asia. Vietnam being one, JFK sort of credited as far as getting us first involved in the Vietnam War. Had made the promise that, hey, I'm going to get us out. I think it was October of '63 that he said, I'm going to get us out of Vietnam. And then in November of '63, what happened?
Well, then I think in the beginning. He did, but I want to say in the beginning of November of 1963, the South Vietnamese generals were saying we want to get rid of President Diem, and Kennedy, we need to look this up. I think it was in November, the beginning of November of '63. President Diem was overthrown. There was a coup. Kennedy said, "Don't kill him," but the generals killed him, and I think his brother.
Yeah, I remember reading about that not too long ago.
Yeah, and then Kennedy gets killed 3 weeks later. 3 weeks later,
and then Johnson gets in.
Yeah, there was really not a good, strong South Vietnamese president after Diem.
Yeah,
and I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Diem.
Diem. Yeah.
So, and there were no good presidents after that, and then the whole thing in Vietnam escalated. Now he was very. I'm going to say this: the October missile crisis with Cuba. He was very lucky. He did. Looking back now, he did the right thing because he's like, he did not. Curtis LeMay wanted to bomb Cuba.
He wanted to bomb everywhere.
But I mean, he bombed. He's the reason why we bombed Japan to smithereens. But at the time, I would have gone along with Curtis LeMay, but I would have been wrong. Kennedy did the right thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he made the right choice.
Yeah, and the world did not go to war during those 13 days.
Yeah. You also have Lyndon Johnson over in the Vietnam War. We already know he did a terrible job. Nixon gets him out, or gets out.
Mm-hmm.
We get out in a terrible way, where it's just like, all right, we're done. We're leaving.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. This is the last chopper out of Vietnam. And it's like, I get that we were there for so long, but it was just such a, like, what is it, cold turkey almost.
Well, I mean, we bombed Hanoi, and North Vietnam was like, okay, we're done. I mean, he literally bombed the, out of North Vietnam. So they came to the tables, and we signed the Paris Peace Accords. And, Dr. Mary Grabar, I was reading her book, and some of the things that she was saying is that South Vietnam could have held their own. They could have. But when they relaunched the war, we turned our backs on the South Vietnamese. We're like, nope, we're not giving you any money.
Yeah. And I've talked to Vietnam veterans who said a lot of times, like the South Vietnamese, they really weren't interested in fighting. And he's like, 5 o'clock comes around, they're like, all right, see you later.
Yeah,
we'll see you in the morning. But I think we could probably, and then George W. Bush, getting us involved in Afghanistan and Iraq. I think you and I sort of agree about the war in Afghanistan at the beginning, but extending it for 18 years, for Pete's sake, give me a break.
Yeah.
Just too long, the war in Iraq. You and I
do
not think so.
Big
We've already done the
mistake.
HW, so we're not going to rehash that.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still not only are we paying the price, although I would say you and I are not paying the price, but all those guys who've been maimed, and I don't know how many men have been killed in Iraq. At the time I was all for it, because I liked the idea that if we turn Iraq into a democracy, that there would be a domino effect. Now, something good did happen. You had the Cedars Revolution, and you also did have Libya. Gaddafi, Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, was like, wow, if they could do this to Saddam Hussein, they could do this to me. So Muammar Gaddafi did an about-face and changed his relations with the West. And he had kind of he actually was getting along with the West. He open door policy, got rid of his weapons of mass destruction or whatever things that they had over there. And, of course, things didn't work out. We ended up, under Obama, we ended up killing him.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a bad move. I think they should have kept him there. But again,
And the thing is like, at the time, he's like, he's a terrible person and he's killing, more or less. And a lot of people bought into it, along with myself. I'm like, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I need to be dead. I knew right then and there that killing Gaddafi was a bad move.
Yeah.
But I was taken in by Bush on the whole, we need to turn Iraq into a democracy. But democracy doesn't work when the people are ignorant. And democracy doesn't work when you vote based on a religion or ethnicity, which is what the United States is slowly turning into. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to vote for him because he's black. I'm going to vote for him because he's Latino. And instead of looking at what the ideals are, which is what the founding fathers were trying to prevent, they did not want, what is, if you want to read about what went on in the interwar years between the First World War and the Second World War, a lot of countries had mixed populations. And when democracy was presented to them, they voted based on their ethnicity. And countries like Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, that caused problems. And it created anger and hatred between the different ethnicities. That's what you want to kind of avoid. Well, Iraq fell under that problem. You had the Kurds, you had the Sunnis, and you had the Shiites were voting based on their religion. and it created a gulf between the different sides, and you ended up with a civil war.
Yeah.
And the Kurds now, they're like going, hey, leave us alone. We're going to form our own nation practically. They want to create Kurdistan, which I don't blame them. But the Sunnis and Shiites, wow, they really
do. All right,
gave it to each other.
From an economic standpoint, let's just touch on a few, because we could be here for God knows how long. Economic standpoint, I think one person I really want to touch on is Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay.
Theodore Roosevelt gets, like, from the right, they say terrible economically. On the left, they say fantastic economically. What do you think with the trust busting and, I guess also extending the national park system and different things like that? Because that also takes away, like, the opportunity for businesses to utilize land and different things like that.
Well, I'm gonna state that I'm not the economics expert in terms of what's his name, Rockefeller actually got richer after they busted up Standard Oil,
Right.
because he started then putting all his stocks, he bought a lot of stocks in many of the different companies, Exxon, which eventually became today Exxon, Mobil, Chevron. I think Chevron was one of them. There were all these different companies that were created out of Standard Oil. He purchased shares in them, and he became richer because of it.
Yeah.
So if your goal is to limit the power of one individual, they did a bad job.
Yeah.
They really did. Now, I can understand why they felt we need to do this to Standard Oil. And it wasn't just Standard Oil that they went after.
Right.
If you ever get a book, there's a couple of books about the Gilded Age and the Progressive Period, and there was some J.P. Morgan and Vanderbilt,
And
Carnegie, Henry Ford, all these guys that just built America into the superpower that it became. They did a lot of good. They really did.
Yeah.
They laid the foundation for the economic success that everybody shared. But if your goal is to bust them up and limit their power, it had an opposite effect. Now today we have big tech. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, that, in my opinion, have way too much power. Yes, they did a good thing. They got in touch with people, cousins and friends that I haven't seen in 30, 40 years. Yeah. I'm now back in touch with them. That was great. That was a good thing. But then, it was kind of like a drug. He got us addicted. Mark Zuckerberg got us addicted to Facebook. And next thing you know, now everybody is in it. And people who are used to be apathetic politically are now involved. And people who know nothing about politics have their opinions, and people are yelling at each other and screaming at each other. And then we have Mark Zuckerberg sitting there going, you know what? We like what Biden's doing, so we are now going to limit free speech. If you are posting something that we don't like, we're going to ban you, or we're going to restrict you, or, and
now you're going to have it towards, like, it's a Rockefeller effect, more or less, is they're already now so wealthy that whenever you do break them up, you're going to have it to where they're going to buy shares in other companies, or start subsidiaries.
What they did to Parler was criminal. Bless you.
Bless me.
Was criminal, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Because Parler was like, okay, we're going to go our separate way. And then they went in there like, nope. Yeah. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, Amazon was like, nope, we're just not going to let you.
It's a cartel, more or less. It's like they're controlling it. It's a mafia type mentality.
So Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, and then some of the major GE. Yeah. GE shouldn't be as powerful as it is.
And this is why I'm saying, like, it's like,
you see the reason why they did it,
right?
Was it the right thing? Did it have the good effect?
There is also unintended consequences.
Correct.
Always unintended consequences with any decision that's made. A lot of times you don't see it. It's best if you understand, like, economics, and you have the right people talking in your ear, who understand that as far as advisors go. But like I was saying, like wanting to go through all of the presidents would be an impossibility because there's so much to go over. And whenever you have here are your top presidents and they get through it in about 30 minutes, they're leaving so much out, and it's more or less you're just going by what everybody else is saying. Economics, I wanted to touch on the Roosevelt thing just to get your thought on the trust busting, unintended consequence. Was it a good thing? Yeah, I mean, to an extent it was. It sort of created the antitrust system and sort of made sure that, hey, if you think that you're going to get in bed with politicians, there's got to be some type of reckoning there and a precedent set to where there's some type of course correction. So I think there were good things that happened. Theodore Roosevelt is one of my favorite presidents, and for a number of reasons.
Bully
For you. But we were talking about the things, how you should judge a president. One, you shouldn't judge them on what their intentions are, or they're trying to do a good job. We've talked so much about that here lately. At least they're trying. No one gives a damn if they're trying. We want to know if they're succeeding. And that's why you and I are pretty big fans of Trump. His rhetoric, whatever, not really, does that hinder certain things? Sure. It will polarize people. It will polarize groups. Does it piss people off? Yes. And whatever.
I mean, if I had a daughter, I mean, I wouldn't want her dating him.
Right.
But if I had a company,
I'd want him running it because he's getting stuff done like at a extremely rapid pace. And it's the things that if I were to hire him as a guy taking over my company, it would be, what is it that you're going to do? Here's what I'm going to do, and then I would hire him to do those things. And if he ends up doing them, guess what? I'm going to hire him again. So before we skedaddle on out of here, there are some things that to touch on. Don't just focus on, yes, morality is a good thing. Them holding themselves up as, in a presidential manner after the ideas of George Washington on with a lot of others, how we perceive a president to be. But I think that those qualities should be after what exactly those policies are. Are they benefiting the country as a whole? Are they benefiting the people?
General von Steuben, he was gay.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know what? George Washington was like, and you got to go back. We're talking the 18th century. That was, to be gay was a scandal. I mean, you could lose your life over it. Today, it's no big deal. But back then, George Washington knew von Steuben is getting shit done. He is doing a good job, and he rewarded him. I mean, he kept him on. He knew that I needed.
And he didn't make it weird. Even when he was retiring, like gave all the guys like handshake and a kiss. Von Steuben being one of them.
Okay, Lincoln couldn't find a good general to win the war. Ulysses S. Grant comes along. Okay, Grant was not an angel. The guy was a drink. He was a drunkard, wasn't he? I mean, if I'm not mistaken,
he drank.
He drank quite a bit, and but Grant won battles. Grant won the war, and I mean, there were some guys that came in that Hooker and Meade and some others that just come on, get us over the hump. Get us. We don't want an 8-4 season.
Yeah.
We want a 12-0 season, that in college football, mind you. Now it's like 15 and nothing.
Something. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it's getting up there.
Too many games.
Yeah. So yeah, you can have a coach that can win 8-4 or 10-5 games, but you want to win the national championship.
You do want to win the national championship.
Yeah, Tom Brady, okay? A lot of people don't like Tom.
This?
I'm just saying, Tom Brady knows how to win.
This is a rabbit
hole. Do you want Tom Brady as your quarterback?
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to give you this list again. This is from the C-SPAN, the recent one from 2017.
Okay, I'm going to give thumbs up and thumbs down on this.
Yeah, which ones should not be.
All right.
All right, from 1 all the way to 15. Should these be in the top 15? Abraham Lincoln is number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. George Washington is number 2.
Yes.
FDR is number 3.
No.
Should he be in the top 15?
No.
Okay. Theodore Roosevelt is number 4.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not gonna state the ranking because
But should be in
I
the
think
top
Washington. I don't want to put Lincoln up.
As number 1.
I would put
Washington.
Lincoln. I'd put Lincoln. Is this 15? Is this 15?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would
15.
put Lincoln in the top 15. Where exactly? That I'd have to sit and think about that.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna state yes, no on. Okay. So.
Right. So Theodore. Yeah. Dwight D Eisenhower.
Yes.
Okay. Harry S. Truman.
Yes.
Thomas Jefferson.
Yes.
JFK.
Yes.
Ronald Reagan.
Definitely yes.
I thought you were going to say absolutely. Lyndon B. Johnson.
No.
Woodrow Wilson.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Barack Obama.
No.
James Monroe.
Yes.
James K. Polk.
Yes.
William J. Clinton.
Top 15. That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
I'm gonna be neutral on that one because I'm still
sort of on the fence there because I had Clinton in my top 10 for a long time, and then after reading that book, I moved him out.
I was totally against, and I'm still against his Brady Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I think
right.
that was a bad move. That's a bad move. But he did do some good things.
Mm-hmm.
He learned to work with Newt Gingrich, which I think is important.
Yeah.
The Brady Bill, his anti-Second Amendment.
These were good things.
Yeah. But again, he did economically. We did do well. We did do well during his tenure. So
he did all right. Good stuff. All right. Okay. Anybody you would replace any of those people with in there?
To put. Okay. Let's see.
I think I'd put maybe Grover Cleveland in top 15. Maybe Calvin Coolidge in there as well.
I would put Andrew Jackson. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Andrew Jackson for a variety of reasons, but he was.
I would put Andrew Jackson in there in the top 15 too.
He was an effective president.
Yep. He fought the national bank system. He
the
started
Trail of
executive
Tears.
orders. But yeah, the Trail of Tears is
The Trail of Tears. Now, what a lot of people and I had to get into a book that was a little bit politically incorrect. On the Trail of Tears, Andrew Jackson did tell the Native Americans, look, if you're willing to work with civilization and purchase, you're not so much purchase land, but create things, run things the way civilization
to an extent,
runs.
If you want to be us, then stay.
Right,
if
then
not,
stay.
You're going to have to go.
Yeah, he was saying if you want to have your nomadic lifestyle, then perhaps it'd be best for y'all to go live in an area that's not going to be civilized for quite some time, which is what it was. So I know a lot of people would say horrible. But there was a clash of civilization versus the nomadic lifestyle of the Indians. So that's another debate, and I can see that as being a show. But before you sit there and say, "Oh, he just wanted to genocide," no, and in fact, the percentage of people who died for the pioneers moving west was higher than. I read this somewhere that the percentage wise of those died were higher for like the pioneers venturing to the west than the number of the Indians who died during their travels to Oklahoma and the plains.
All right, so that brings our show to an end, talking strictly on how do you view a president? What is the proper way to view a president? These ranking systems, they're good to know, but it's also better to know the presidents themselves. What were their policies, And what was it, not just how was it when they were president, but what were the lasting effects? Were they positive or were they negative? And a lot of times you can rate your president much better once you give some time in between. Hence the reason why I think Barack Obama right now is at number 8 in one of them and number 12 in another. So it's just, and you and I, we think that he was a terrible president.
William McKinley, we don't
talk much about him.
Yeah, he was previous president during the Spanish-American War.
Mm-hmm. And he was a pretty good president, but laissez-faire.
Yeah, but you know what? Okay, here's the genius. I'm going to say the genius of William McKinley was that he got Southern generals to fight with the United States. Like Wheeler, I forgot his first name, but his name was Wheeler. He was a Confederate cavalryman. Something like I don't know. But he was a Confederate cavalryman. And he's like, let's get some of the Southern Confederates to be part of this so that it'll be a unifying war, so that Southerners will fight as Americans, just like the Northerners. And that's what he did. And he successfully did it. So it was the first war fought with a unified country, a major war. I'm not talking about like the war with the Indians, but yeah. So that was a pretty smart move on his part.
Yeah, interesting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our show to an end. And as always, we like to end our show on a scripture. This one comes from Proverbs 15:22. It says, "Without counsel, plans go awry, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established." And so to an extent, like we referenced Lincoln and Washington bringing opposing viewpoints, very smart people as well to establish those plans. Always a good thing. All right, Alan, where can people find us?
Well, they can find us on Facebook, Twitter. No, we're not on Twitter anymore.
No,
Facebook got out of Twitter. We are out of Twitter. Voluntarily. Instagram,
Why
YouTube.
am I helping you here?
I know, this is my show. Smack you with that mustache. Okay, so Facebook, Instagram, you have your Thursday Night Live chats. YouTube, we're trying to get people to subscribe to us on YouTube. So please get on YouTube and subscribe to us so that we can do live streaming.
And click the bell while you're at it.
Yes. Now we do have we do have an account. We're going.
Don't even mention it.
All right,
move on.
Gab, Clout Hub, and all those other MeWe. We are all on there. But we also have our very own website, www.thesonsofhistory.com. If you click on that link and go to that website, you'll see our faces. Although.
Gorgeous.
My face, I'm looking at you. I mean, what?
Yeah, because you're always looking to me for answers. Go to our homepage, check out our merch store as well. Go buy yourself a shirt or a coffee mug. And until then, we'll talk to you later.